Victor. Okay, here we go, guys. Shall we get started?
It was here, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, guys. Obviously, this is a special council workshop tonight, and it is just that. It's just a workshop. And so this evening, there's no public testimony, no public hearing, just a discussion with the council that's done in public. So, it is a workshop, and we don't always do the same as a council meeting. However, I think I would like to go ahead and stand and pray and do the pledge, and then we'll dig into our agenda. So let's do that. Lord, I thank you that you hear our prayers. And as we step into this meeting tonight, we need your wisdom. We need your wisdom. We need you, Lord, to show us the direction to go. And Lord, you know our heart to be a good steward of this asset with the city. And so we ask for your wisdom and your presence this evening. Guide us in the decisions and in the discussions. And we ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Jingula.
Here.
Bills.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
Griffin.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. So, tonight for this is a workshop. It is just a discussion. In front of you, just to help us go through the evening, we put some discussion points down, and it's not all encompassing, but it'll guide us a little bit. But we can go whatever direction, and we can adjust it. The thought was maybe we just start with Fort Idaho Center financials, and then Andrew Luther's on, Doug is on, that they can answer any questions. Then we'll just talk about some different options. What we're trying to address, my thought tonight, is to address some of the questions that have come up from the public. So in front of, for the council members, I just put some extra documents just so that you had them at your disposal this evening. And anyway, so my thought was, and this is really a question, and I do apologize. Doug is online, Andrew is online, and they're available to answer any questions. Council, would you like to discuss anything on the financial element? Do we need to start and go over any financials on the Fort Idaho Center? We've got the document that is online, that is the FIC capital investments. This document, it's been available to the public. I just went ahead and put it in front of you just so you had it if you needed to. I don't know if you have any questions on that. The next document that I gave you,
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question.
Okay.
Is it for Doug online?
you certainly can. Yes, that's why he's there.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions for Doug. So the first question I have, Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Have you been given the opportunity to review a recent CWI audit of financial statements like the one that's available on the CWI website?
Of CWI financials?
Yeah.
No, I have not reviewed their financials.
Okay, so you haven't reviewed anything as far as in light of CWI's potential to take on this asset. Is that correct?
No, I've focused solely on the Fort Idaho Center and our financials.
Okay. Well, in light that there's a rescission agreement or responsibility that the city takes the Fort Idaho Center back if CWI isn't able to, if something happens in the future, the city needs to be aware of what the potential is for that entity that's taking on. At least that's my personal opinion. So my question to you is, should we have any concern about CWI's ability to take on this asset in light of the And I'm just going to say it, the Eide Bailey Independent Auditors Report found on the CWI website, well, you can't speak to that because you haven't reviewed it. But I have a copy of it, and I can share it with council here if we need to, but there are some concerns that have been and stated in the past, and going forward, just, again, understanding their ability to take on the asset and be able to maintain it to the level that they're stating that it needs to be maintained to. And then my final question, maybe you can answer, should we have any concern about the 3% general fund reduction for CWI ordered by Governor Little for fiscal year 26 in order to consolidate services and for cost reductions? If they're going to be looking at reductions in their subsidy from the state, is that an issue that we should be looking at? I guess that's just more of a general question to you.
Well, I think you raise questions that I think are as valid as any questions we can address. Whether the state will change their funding with a 3% reduction or not, I cannot speak to. I don't even know if the state can actually speak to it. I know they're proposing a number of things, but they have not been my concern because they're not my finances. But from a finance perspective, you definitely want to be aware of what the purchaser or the acquirer, what their financial capacity is, and both now and next year and the future. It's something well worth considering on either side of the coin, both for us and for them. What's the impact to us if we keep them?
Right.
What's the impact to them if we pass them off to them?
And that's, again, exactly where I'm coming from. The mayor, when I talked to the mayor, it's not a gotcha type thing. It's just the reality of risk. And so what we're here for is risk assessment. So that's what I'm looking at from a standpoint of, as we start this conversation going forward, if that's the premise we're working off of is a risk assessment, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
But I would like, I am curious. I'll have to look back at the Eide Bailey statement. If they were given a clean audit opinion, which I assume they were, which is what we get, that would mean that for all material aspects, the CWI financials are fairly presented, meaning you can rely on them. If they have had any issues in the past, recent past or distant past, I can't speak to right now, but I will look and see if they are financial related, operational related, or what they might speak to. But I wouldn't throw anything out that they have a problem with the finances until we determined what that might be, if any.
Well, there were errors found in their report. So that's, and again, this is just right off the CWI website.
Yeah.
Certain errors resulting in an understatement of amounts previously reported for capital and right of use assets as of June 30th of 2023 were discovered by the management of the college during that year. So if they've corrected those, if that was something that was just an anomaly or not, again, that's all I'm looking at is this is the same thing we look at for the Nampa Development Corporation and for the city of Nampa when Eide Bailey prepares their reports for us.
It's a very valid question. We had the same issue on our financials about 3 or 4 years ago when there was a small finding about how we valued our capital assets for the city. I would be more concerned if they overvalued them than if they undervalued them, but it's something we take a look at and verify exactly what it is.
And just further, it states that it did raise substantial doubts about the college's ability to continue as a going concern for 12 months beyond the financial statement date, including any currently known information that may raise substantial doubt shortly thereafter. So again, I mean, all I'm doing is I'm looking at what was prepared by Eide Bailey for CWI, and this was off of the CWI website. So this isn't something that
Let me dig into that one. If they in fact issued what's called a going concern comment, that needs research. Those are important comments. It's a thing in a phrase in the accounting terminology, going concern. If they actually issued that as a going concern comment, we want to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
So, Randy, thank you. When we, and we did this with our, when we moved into the wastewater treatment facility and we put out the I think we started with an RFI and then we moved from that. We did that kind of due diligence, the financial due diligence. And so I think it's a very natural question based on what we typically do on a big project. So with that, I think it's very worthwhile to have Doug do some initial review and then maybe come back with council members and have a discussion about that. And then also address and ask the question about the concerns on the 3% holdback.
That's based upon the fact that there is a portion of the conveyance agreement that speaks to it coming back to the city for ownership if in the future things don't work out. So we're looking at a report that's prepared for deferred maintenance and, you know, the costs associated with that. And I have other questions for council when we get to that point. But again, our ability to take on the cost, their ability to take on the cost is as equal a concern to me. So I want to make sure that we are factoring in that level of risk, not only for ourselves, but for them as well.
Thank you. I think that well taken, points well taken, Doug. I have written those down, and obviously they're of record, but as a to-do at the conclusion of the meeting.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
if I could follow up with Randy. I have also looked at that report, and I was concerned as well, but you said it just right, Randy. So the thing about, Mayor, is if there has been, ever since we've started this process, that the CWI says that they have the funds to fund it. They also said they're going to fundraise for it. And they haven't said anything about receiving funds from the state yet. But I don't know that based on their ability to, even though they keep saying they have. But I'd like to know if we have been involved and know the numbers between Oakview Group and CWI as far as their investment on behalf of Oakview Group, or what they have decided, or what they've figured out what they would do to make it better or financially stable. So I'm not sure, Mayor. I don't know where that is. And I think that might be a point that we may look at to determine the availability and financial status of Oakview Group to invest, or CWI to invest with them, if there's been any kind of agreement.
It's a good question. I can't speak to what agreements they're working on,
Right.
and I don't know if I don't know how to even speak to that from a public record standpoint, and if that, because they may be having discussions regarding contractual agreements, but that hasn't been something that we are part of.
Well, and I know that, Mayor. Yes, I'm well aware of that, but I'm just thinking if we need to be on top of that, because that's our property and our investment, and we probably need to be on top of that, just in case, Mayor. I'm just throwing it out there to you.
Thank you.
Mayor, and I'll
I've written
just-
that one down, too.
Thank you.
So we've captured it, yeah.
And I'll just say that Governor Little ordered a 3% budget holdback for most Idaho state agencies, including College of Western Idaho. So BSU, all of the state institutions are seeing the same cut holdbacks. And I'm not sure what that actual dollar amount is, but I'm sure it affects their bottom line of what they can accomplish going forward. So knowing that they're going to be going in with less money to work with, just like we're talking about from our standpoint, it's just a valid concern.
Thank you. Are there any other questions
Mayor,
right now for Doug?
possibly. I'm not, I'm just looking at these documents that we were provided. I don't know if it's from Doug or Andrew, but I'm looking at the 3-year, or the breakdown of the fiscal year 22, 23, 24. I'm looking on those, and it says, I'm just looking at the line items, and it says indirect expense. I'm not sure what that is. Can someone clarify what that means?
Well, we're not quite to that
Okay.
area of the agenda yet, so I think we're going to come back to, if you don't mind pausing on that
That's
one.
fine,
And
I
then we'll
just- yep.
explain what that is in just a second. So, and we can go there. So, Andrew, we'll just shift there. So let me start with, go ahead.
Before we jump into
Okay.
there, can we get a clarification on this spreadsheet that was handed out?
Doug, the document that they're looking at is the document that you put together that is on our website, that has the fiscal years and the total capital expenses, the investments, et cetera.
So it shows 3 years of financials on it, or is it the one that just shows
This is,
The,
this is 05 through 25,
okay, all right.
that document that
So that's,
shows,
right. Go ahead.
go ahead.
So clarification, total capital expenses, and then horse park / other. Then the third column is total capital at cost. So that would be columns 1 and 2 added together, it appears.
Yes.
So
But now keep in mind there, that isn't the total amount of money that we have spent on it. It's the total of money that was both transferred to us from the urban renewal at the time and from what we've spent. So you look back in 05, you see a $25 million value. We did not spend that money. That was spent by the urban renewal and then transferred to the city. But the other values going down after 05 are values that we have spent.
right, so 05 urban renewal had it and transferred the facility to the city of Nampa. And then,
Correct.
okay, so then we go on down the pathway, and if this is all capital costs. This isn't, it's not till you get over to roughly column 5, city operating funding.
Correct.
Okay, which then shows in that 14-15 era in there where it was $1.5 million. My recollection when we were actually approving the budget back in 13, 14, I guess it's been 14, it was like a 1.8. But this is showing 1.6 deficit on the operating side. So the contribution has been, not counting the initial transfer over of urban renewal property or value, is capital money the last 20 years has been $9 million. And operationally, the city has subsidized the Idaho Center $14 million.
Sorry, I had a little breakup there. Is there a question?
Well, I was trying to get confirmation that I'm understanding the numbers correctly. And
Oh, yeah.
so the total
Right.
city funding is $22 million that the city has been subsidizing the last 20 years.
Correct. Correct. You are correct. It's both the combination. It should be a value for the capital and the value for the operations, and then a combined impact of what we put into the Florida Center in terms of operational and capital funding. Now,
Okay,
the money you're talking about in 14, right?
well, so so from an operational point of view, it shows in FY '24, the city subsidized the Idaho Center by $1.6 million. So just a year ago, the city kicked in $1.6 million just in the operating side.
So I think on that column, the operational impact wasn't $1.6 million then. The total was $1.6 million. But that probably includes the amount of money we spent over on the horse box. So you look back in that second column, and you see in 24, there's like $1 million some odd that we spent on the horse park.
Okay, so who paid for the
Million
horse
one.
park? The city of Nampa or the Horse Park Association?
City of Nampa paid for $1.5 million of the horse park over 2 years. And then we transferred the asset to the horse park. But that was typically what we do is we send the money, we let the horse park or the Fort Idaho Center do the capital investing, and then we reimburse them. In this case, and this is the only case I'm aware of, we actually spent the money and managed the project for the development of the horse park in cooperation with Andrew's guidance. Then we will push the investment to their books as a capital.
Okay, so do you know the revenue that comes in off of the RV park?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Andrew could probably speak to that a little more clearly than I could. I do know that on the sheets that I was reviewing last night from Andrew, they had 3 years from 22, 23, and 24 that showed the horse park. And I believe in 22, the horse park revenues were some almost 800,000. And then in 23, 24, 22, they were about 600,000. In 23, they were about 800,000. And then in 24, they dropped down to about $600,000. I thought that kind of curious that it would drop down with the, maybe it was because we are developing the new RV park in there, but it actually dropped down a little bit in 24.
So possibly Andrew's online, and Andrew, you may not have the number in front of you, but would you like to weigh in on Councilman Bill's question? That, do you by any chance know off the top of your head the revenue coming in from the RV park?
On the RV park directly, no, but that's something I could certainly pull the information on and follow up. We charge $60 a night for each one of those RVs, so it's a pretty simple for me to find out. I could probably get that to you tomorrow.
Thank-
Well, it'd be helpful because from the standpoint of reviewing an asset and whether to transfer and what's the production of the asset, that if we invested $1.9 million into the horse park since 2020, it'd sure be nice to know, are we making 100,000 or are we making 10,000? And what kind of return that is. And
Sure.
to me, those are questions that we should be looking at. Regardless of the transfer, we should be looking at that from the standpoint of this whole scenario shows that the city's put in 22 million in one area, in one column. Capital costs total 35 million. So we're subsidizing on the operations side, we're subsidizing on the capital, and we don't have the funds to take care of more capital. And so it seems like from a, future forward, regardless of transfer, some way there's got to be an owning up to, we've got a facility that is operationally in the red and defunct from a capital improvement. So Doug, I just need your comments, or what are you seeing from the financial picture?
Well, the overall finances from 22 to 24 have improved every year. The point was in the 25-year budget for the first time, we did not include any operational support. We included a little over 800,000 of capital support, but no operational support. So each year for the past 3 to 4 years, their operation, their bottom line has got better. I can't speak to right now the differentiation between the amphitheater and the horse park and the arena in terms of revenues. I've got those, but I don't have them at the top of my fingertips right now. But overall, they're getting better every year.
I think for
So,
sake of time.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Apologies. So, Doug, can you just, one more time, I heard it, I just want it restated. For the last 3 years, when we net out our operational, our maintenance, are we in the red or are we in the black? And can you give me numbers for 22, 23, 24? Because you said the last 3 years. Are we counting 25? We just finished fiscal year 25. Are we factoring that in as well?
Okay, I was offline for just a second. You talking to me, Sebastian, or Andy?
You or both, either.
Okay.
I just
Well,
for the last 3 years, what is our net? Are we at a net loss or a net profit, and how much per year?
For the last 3 years, if you take out the support we've given them in terms of capital, in terms of operation, for the last 4 years, they've lost money each year, but the reduction, the amount of money they've lost has decreased each year if you take out our entire support. And the 1.6 million we put in for the horse park is included in that support. So we spent the $1.6 million of capital funded by the cities. When you take all those out, they've lost money each year, but each year they get a little bit better. And I believe, I don't recall off the top of my head, if you look on that sheet that David Bills was referring to in the very far right column, you look at the very last 4 numbers, and you'll see probably 200,000, 90,000, in the last 4 or 5 years, you'll see those have been the smallest amount of losses that we've incurred.
If you add the last
Thank you.
three numbers, it's $1.3 million over the last 3 years. Now, the income, the revenue has been better, but it's when you take out our investment that it brings that number down to $1.3 million investment in the last 3 years. That does include the RV park. So,
So we can't say that we've been profitable the last 3 years. We've been at losses. When you consider the investment, even on an investing year, you can't consider that as a profitable year because you're reinvesting, correct?
correct.
We've never been profitable. We've lost money every year,
Yeah.
but the operations have gotten better, but we've never been profitable. If you take out the amount of money we've given them, they've never been profitable.
Thank you.
So I know Andrew may not be able to be on for a long time, so I think I'd like to quickly switch over to the document that Natalie was referencing. So in your packet, you have 3 pages. One says FY22, the other is FY23, the last is FY24. Councilman Haverfield asked the question about when we had an offer from OVG to come in and to invest in the amphitheater. And I think we had talked about the first time it came in and we said there was no way. They came back with another offer. What Andrew has done is provided a document that shows, which you see on each one of these, you see FY22 and then you see the year HP/arena, meaning the Horse Park Arena, the proposed contract. So applying that contract, those terms to the budget, what it shows in FY22, we actually would have made about $65,000. In FY23, we would have made $184,000. In FY24, we would have lost $132,000. The difference would have been a potential net revenue of $198,000 under the new terms. And those are just quick overview numbers. I think, and so that's the difference between the left column and the right column. And this was done by Andrew and his team. Andrew, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, sure, Mayor. So yeah, those 3 sheets were put together to be somewhat of a scenario of what the last 3 fiscal years would be under the proposed amphitheater investment deal. So as Mayor said, the left column is as is current agreement. The right column would be a hypothetical if the last 3 fiscal years were under the proposed agreement. And as a refresher, the proposed agreement was a capital investment into the amphitheater joint by OVG and Live Nation, with upside and downside taken by OVG and Live Nation, and then retooling the horse park and the arena under a different management terms to make it a little more, I guess, properly split it out so that the horse park and arena has a great shot of continuing on its same financial performance as it has been the last several years.
And keeping in mind, this has nothing to do with capital investment at all.
This is operating only.
And one disclaimer also, there's a lot of more conversation that would need to be had about these. These are numbers that they're good working numbers, but we've only just started discussing this really in real time.
Okay. So Natalie, Councilwoman Jangula, I should say, did you have a question?
That's okay. Yeah, Andrew, what is that line item that says indirect expenses? What does that mean?
Indirect expenses are all expenses outside of full-time salary, part-time salaries, and benefits. So things like utilities, supplies, repairs, postage, printing, all those costs.
Thank you.
And I will say that these numbers, and Andrew, I hope it's okay that I say it this way, these are very high-level estimates. This is not tracked exactly. Andrew and I spoke about this a little earlier today, because the expenses, you've got the salary expense and the indirect expenses. The revenues are separated by Arena Horse Park Amphitheater, but the expenses are not separated to that level of detail. And so we all recognize that. This is nothing more than, I'm going to say, a guesstimate, not to be held to be 100%. It's just an estimate of what that might look like. But I do appreciate the effort to get an estimate together to give us an idea under the new terms what that might look like, potentially.
Yes, I agree with you, Mayor. It was a first draft of what we think is reasonable, with more expected conversations and questions to come as we flush through the model more.
So council, do you have any questions for Andrew on this? Okay.
Andrew, the proposal that we were talking about, the one that from a year ago, the one that we're looking at today, included, I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, I was looking for it, had an investment on OVG's part of $10 million is the recent one for the amphitheater improvements. Would there not be expected revenue increases by virtue of an expanded amphitheater from an opportunity standpoint and potential revenue generator that the city would be able to participate in? Because we were talking about a per diem off of the ticket sales that would come back to the city along with the land lease. So are those factored into this proposed contract or not?
Yes, they are. They are reflected in the right column towards the bottom. I think it's called the amphitheater rent line and a amphitheater ticketing line. I'm sorry, they're not right in front of me right now.
I'm looking at the current contract versus the proposed contract, and there's nothing listed for amphitheater. Oh, amphitheater rent. Okay, so the amphitheater expense under the current, is that an expense, or is the 1.1 million, or is that a revenue?
I'm not
Current
sure where you're
contract.
referring.
Fiscal year 24.
Under current contract, it would be revenue.
Okay, revenue, and then so we would not have the revenue under the proposed contract, but is that all ticket sales revenue?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
So why would not, I thought we had in the offer that we would be getting $1 or whatever it might be off of each ticket. Wouldn't that be revenue?
That is in there. So
Ticket
with
rebate,
the,
Oh, is that the
the
rebate?
ticket rebate at the bottom, 160,000?
Okay, so you expect only 160,000 people to buy tickets for a year out of the
So,
amphitheater?
under the proposed agreement, OVG and Live Nation take all the revenue and also the downside, but then also take all the salaries and indirect expenses for on the amphitheater off of the city's books as well.
Okay, and
So,
again,
and the-
I thought when we talked, we talked about it being a point of negotiation. That's, it's still kind of up to the negotiation as far as how we would move forward with the rebate and the rent, the land lease. Is that correct?
Yes, everything was preliminary.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Andrew? I did mention to Andrew that he will be available if we need to get back to him and have him answer any questions. He's happy to step back on. He's not going to stay online, but he will, I'll call him if we need him to come back. So any other questions on this piece at this time? I might go ahead.
Just for clarification, the proposed contract is what Councilman Haverfield was referring to, was one that was being discussed last year and still potentially on the table, or even a modified, but it's more of a what if, and it's totally is projection, right? And where we've been is what's the left column, that's the current agreement.
Yes.
So the money that has been staying in the city's hands or OVG that rises and falls is cash flow, is cash to operate with, right? And we are not seeing any increase in that amount of money over the last 3 years.
Increase in,
In other words, starting to have excess cash flow that we can use towards
anything
capital
else?
improvements, yeah.
Well, the answer to that question is a little more complex because the fund balance that they have on, and the cash they have on hand has been increasing the past 4 or 5 years. When during the COVID years in 2021 or 2022, maybe 2021, they were down to about 1.5 million. Now they're up at 3.6 million. A few months ago, they were as high as $5 million. But what's happening is we're still continuing to fund them, but their operations are getting better. So their net results, their operational improvements are bringing more money back in to help cover a part of what we give them. So we just let that accumulate into the cash. Has continued to improve over the last couple of years because
He's traveling, so he's breaking up a little bit. as
Doug,
he
you're breaking
travels.
up. We're going to cut to another question I have for existing council. So 2-3 years ago, there was a
bad signal. Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now for, are you there? Doug, we're going to just put you on pause for a minute, and Councilman Bills is going to visit with the council for a minute. Go ahead.
So this is going to come across possibly critical. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm trying to look at things objectively. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, council made a decision to put in horse park RV spaces and to put in that capital investment at the same time of not maintaining the existing facility. And it seems the return is unknown, but possibly pretty minimal. What was the thinking and the reason to put in the RV park and to spend that capital improvement money in that direction versus taking care of the existing facility?
I think, can I just real quickly, and Andrew, I don't know if you remember this, at the time, it seemed like the ROI was about 8 years. Is that about right?
Exactly, it was 5 years.
That's
Was-
So is that, Andrew, what was that?
you are correct, Mayor. About 8 years.
About 8 years, okay. So at the time, we made the decision that an 8-year ROI was acceptable. So that was kind of, in council, am I correct in my
Was
assessment of
that your
that?
first year as mayor?
No, because we just did that about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years
Oh,
ago.
I thought he was talking, oh, yeah, 8 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the 8-year ROI on the horse park,
Right.
when we approved to go ahead and invest in that.
We decided to do that because it was a good investment for our horse events, rather than not have them here. We wanted to bring them here, and the money, the revenue that it was gained through rental would pay back the city. And instead, the money was not given back to the city, it was absorbed by the Fort Idle Center. So it's 1.5. We started, I think, at 2.3 and ended up at 1.5. But that investment, we don't know the numbers yet, but I know it's been remarkable that they've been rating those RV parks out. But that number goes back into the Fort Idle Center. So it's a good investment for us, and it's been well received by the community. To answer to the question on the other critical needs, at this point, it was a return on their investment to make sure that we were not losing participants or events.
So your question, David, was it based upon the financial side decision or on the use side by the Idaho Horse Foundation folks?
I'm looking at it from the financial point of view.
Okay,
So
and that's where I was just going to say,
a great deal of investment went into the RV park to further the horse park operation with a potential of an 8-year return on investment before it breaks even. And we have a facility that's depreciating and needs maintained. But we go forward in helping the horse park operation. And now we find ourselves not being able to increase revenue or being able to continue to put more money into the Idaho Center, the question thereof. I'm just trying to understand the thinking of this 2 years ago to the decision that is sitting before us, or the discussion, anyways, maybe no decision. And we're still behind the 8 ball on maintenance, but we chose to go into the banking business and fund something that we hope is going to break even in 8 years.
Well,
So I'm just trying to understand what was the
I'd like
thinking?
Andrew to speak to that. Andrew, can you speak to it? Why, at the time, I don't know if you're still there to where you can answer that question. And-
Yes, Mayor, I'm still
Thank
here. Really, there's a lot of conversation from Horse Park Foundation, the rodeo, and the various stakeholders in the park, and pretty good points on why the further expansion was needed to ensure the longevity of the current events at the facility. Some of them were pushing to outgrow the facility and were having options to go elsewhere. So this was a way to, ensure the longevity of the large equine events at the facility. I understand your point, Councilman. It makes complete sense, but the context at the time, I think it certainly made sense as an investment also to ensure that the economic impact would still remain.
I think one of the things that was discussed at the time was not just looking at the ROI on the actual RV space, but the ROI on the events that were coming, because we were at risk at the time of losing some of these big horse shows because they were outgrowing our facility. And by investing, having the RV spaces, it would help them attract future events and expand the the use of the facility by having the RV parks on site. They use them. Andrew, you can speak to this. I think they use them fully, plus a bunch of temps. Is that correct?
Yes, they've been a great success, great addition to the amenities here at the park.
Yeah. So that is not just,
Mayor?
ROI. Yes, Sebastian?
I wasn't on council when this had happened, but I went to tour the horse park facilities, and Sherry was the one taking me around in the golf cart. And she said one of the reasons that it had happened, this is obviously second and third hand information, looking past the direct return on investment in 8 years, they were able to, number one, retain people's spaces in Nampa rather than having them housed in Meridian or Caldwell. And ultimately, the economic benefit of keeping those spaces with those people was significant, and the economic benefit side outside of our own budget.
Thank you. So while that, I appreciate your question, I guess my suggestion would be, I'd like to not spend a whole lot of time on why we did what we did. We know that we invested that dollar amount in there. It is part of it. But as we look to the future in our decision, I think that's where my suggestion is that we kind of focus forward a little bit, because we can't undo.
I'm not
that.
trying to flog or so forth. What I'm trying to understand is the thinking 2 years ago, because all these numbers were available other than the last 2 years, were available 2 years ago. So I'm just trying to understand what was the future forward to us now being in the position at this time asking, what do we do with the Fort Idaho Center?
The reason.
So I was just
yeah.
looking for background to understand.
The playing field that has changed, that has brought this forward, really has to do with the $5.8 million that is not in our budget today. 2 years ago, we didn't even anticipate what we learned earlier this year when Canyon County and Rick Hogelbohm came and spoke to us. That information, it was unfolding, and we knew it was unfolding, the impact of House Bill 389 and 673, but it wasn't until this year that we saw and really fully understood the significant impact of where we are. So 2 years ago, when we were discussing this, that wasn't in front of us like it is today. That's the difference today, is that we don't have the revenue.
I was just going to say the same thing. Why we're even having this conversation is based upon those type of decisions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight, I don't think.
I agree.
Or it'd be a topic of conversation going forward, but not to the point where it's been taken today. So,
Yeah. I agree with that.
But at the same time, part of the discussion in terms of, it's not just operation, it's also the capital side, right?
Yep.
That we're slipping behind each year.
Well, I was going to ask a question of council. Might as well ask it now, yes or no. If there were no projected deferred maintenance costs, and this is just hypothetical, would we be having this discussion tonight? If yes, then it's not about deferred maintenance, so what would be the reason? You've stated that we shouldn't be in the entertainment business as a city. It's been stated that we don't care what the value is. That's what the citizens are hearing out there. So going forward, we need to, I think what the mayor's cutting to the chase is, what are we willing to do here? Are we willing to take this on and continue to try to improve on a situation, or to turn it over to someone else, expecting them to be able to take care of it? So again, I'm just cutting to the chase. If it's about deferred maintenance only, then let's talk about deferred maintenance. If it's not just about deferred maintenance and it's about entertainment zone or whatever, those type of things, then let's take a step back from the deferred maintenance side, focus on those as being the reasons for this discussion tonight. Because that's where I'm hearing mixed messages from this council.
Mayor,
Councilman Griffin?
I'll be the first to respond that when this got brought up, the deferred maintenance was not the issue for me. And I know, Mayor, when we had sat down, whether it be September, October, or August, I can't remember now. I stated this point, and I'll continue to state it. I don't think cities should ever be in the entertainment venue. I've always held that opinion. I held that opinion when I campaigned. So now, deferred maintenance is a factor, yes, but for me, it ultimately comes down to what's our goals and plans with the Ford Idaho Center? Are we going to grow and be competitive in the market, or are we going to maintain what we currently have? And this conversation's got chalked up 50 different ways, but to answer your question straight to the point, no, it wasn't about the deferred maintenance for me. And then deferred maintenance came out to be $28 million. And that just happened to be another point of contention for everybody else. So just answer your question directly.
Thank you for that. Any other comments from council members?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I was of the same thought with the deferred maintenance. It is an issue, but we just have been feeding this thing too long, and we have no business being in this venue. Although we do like having our rodeo, and we do like having our horse park and the things that it brings to our city, but we have no business as a city feeding this thing, in my opinion.
Then should we give up the Civic Center?
The Civic Center.
Yes.
Because it's been in the red from day one, still is.
But it hasn't been in the red at the same level. It's been in the red by a couple 100,000, maybe 350,000, 380,000. The community benefit that it is the community, it's where we do our small theater events, it's where we have our dance things. It is truly there for the benefit of our community. And a lot of civic centers like this are truly there for the benefit of the community, and that's what our civic center is and why it was built. I wouldn't recommend we get rid of it at all. I think the challenge that we've got with the Ford Idaho Center is that when it was built for a rodeo initially, which is awesome, and we love our rodeo. We know that the height of the building was not built to handle the rigging for a big show. We recognize that. But I don't think at the time the city really understood the financial commitment on a property like that. It was in an urban renewal district. The funding was coming from that urban renewal district. Then when you sunset that, then the increased tax increment that was funding it is no longer there. It's handed to the city, and the city's covering that deficit out of the tax with the taxpayers. And that's the greatest challenge that we've faced, and the deficit far exceeds what a civic center does. And most of the utilization of the Fort Idaho Center, the big concerts, it's the entire Treasure Valley. It's not just Nampa. A lot of the Civic Center is our community members that are coming in and join and participating in that. I think that, and we've talked about this, venues are not built to, most of them do not cash flow in the black. But we aren't prepared for it. And like we said earlier, this discussion wouldn't even be happening probably. We hadn't addressed deferred maintenance, and it wasn't on the radar until CWI did their facility assessment, because they needed to have an idea of what they were taking on. But really it had to do with back when we had this discussion, and it began, the question came up, what is the role of the city as it relates to a facility like this? Is the role of the city to be in the entertainment business, and with our tight budget, is it the role of the city to fund that, or is the role of our city to be funding public safety? So, because that's what comes out of GenGov. So, I mean, that's really where it came from. Could we real quickly, while Andrew's on, there were some questions. I asked him, and so in your packet, there's a sheet there, and I asked Andrew to please provide a response to some questions that came up, because that's part of tonight, is responding to questions that we've been hearing. So one question that came up was, can the Fort Idaho Center increase ticket prices to generate more revenue? And so his answer was, he said, no, the Fort Idaho Center does not set ticket prices. And so that's the exact answer, because they don't set the ticket prices, the show does. And they don't retain ticket revenue for any event. The ticket prices are set by the artists, the promoters, show producers, and their various management teams. The Fort Idaho Center acts as a bank, retaining the ticket sales, and this is what Doug has mentioned to us in that in the retention of dollars that are sitting there, and then they distribute the ticket sales back to the event utilizing the venue. Then the next comment is, what is a facility fee? Because that really is what has been asked. Can we increase or put a facility fee on the ticket price? So a facility fee is a fee charged by the venue on top of a ticket price that is retained by the venue. Currently, the facility fee at the Fort Idaho Center is $2 per ticket, and netted against its tax, credit card fees, and splits with promoters that are used to attract events. The facility fee can be increased. However, there are risks with that. Competition may not have similar facility fees, and artists can become price sensitive, as the facility fee may not be obvious to the consumer. Lastly, the facility fee currently goes to the net operating income of the venue across the entire fiscal year. In other words, the city of Nampa does not receive the facility fee, and like any of the net revenue, can decide how to spend the funds. The remainder is contributed to the Fort Idaho Center fund balance, along with other net operating income. And then the next question, how is the facility utilized now? Utilization has many definitions in the context of a facility. The direct utilization of the facility was 262 event days. This is an event on 72% of the available days. There are many days that have multiple events occurring, which would push that number well past 400 event days. And then they've got the attendance by event type. And then there was another question, why not add more sporting events? Any event will be reviewed, considered, and added if there's an opportunity to create revenue. Many events are considered annually and booked, and some are not. There must be a financial return to the venue to book any event. There was some discussion about, and we'll talk about ICE. Well, yeah, that's coming in another question, but I think there was a lot of discussion about, well, have you tried this and have you tried that? And just, I will say, both the Civic Center and the Fort Idaho Center have really worked even to create their own events. They look at events, but if there is not a viable bottom line, then it's not worth doing the event, because you've got to make money on them. And just because there's an idea for an event doesn't mean that it makes any money. And then next, why are there not more equine events inside the Ford Idaho Center Arena? And his comment to that is cost is the biggest factor. To bring dirt in and out and clean the facility would cost an event producer a minimum of approximately $50,000. It is very expensive to bring dirt into that arena. And then the cleaning of the arena from the dust and everything that's created, I think the average person doesn't realize that. The footing for the horses, there's all different types of dirt, which we have out there based on the footing that is needed, but it is very expensive. It is not inexpensive. And that $50,000 is before charges for rent, staffing, et cetera. And then there was another discussion, a comment about adding winter sports, hockey and ice skating. And the answer to that, and these are, again, this is Andrew put this together, which I appreciate. The Ford Idaho Center is not equipped with an ice plant, ice floor, or dasher system. To do this, a temporary setup would be required, and it's very expensive to rent. Setting up a temp system would take a week plus and would preclude any other event from using the facility. So that is that could be a future consideration, but you got to figure out what pencils. So Andrew, if you're still there, would you like to make any other comments? Obviously, as you know, I just read the document you produced. Do you have any other comments?
No, Mayor, I tried to answer everything as clearly as I could. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance involved with it, but from what I heard from the community was, well, why isn't the facility booked more or do more of XYZ event? And I would just say that we work hard every day to ensure that the highest and best use does occur. Booking events does come at an opportunity cost. It's a risk reward. We're book something one day and maybe something bigger pops up the next. So it's not a perfect science, but we certainly try to apply our best capabilities to it and ensure the events that are booking the facility are bringing the maximum amount of revenue to it.
Mayor,
Yes.
and I apologize for crying baby in the background in advance. Andrew, first off, I hope you have felt and continue to feel that, at least from my seat, and I believe all the other council seats, that we think you do an exceptional job. And I really believe that. And I think we've all said that time and time again. So I applaud you and your team. Following up on the second response, the facility fee, I think that's great information. And I know there's a lot of nuance. I'm just trying to flesh it out in this setting. If we changed our facility fee from $2 to $6 or $7, or made it a sliding scale depending on the event, where's the threshold that says, this isn't going to work for us? So that's part A, and then I have part B if I could, Mayor, but I'll let him respond to that.
Sure. And thanks for the words, Councilman. I understand you guys all have a job to do, so totally understand. Regarding the facility fee, you asked me that before. I would say I did a little bit of market research on this, and about $4 is really the high end for a market like ours. Some of the bigger markets go a little higher. I think that'd be pushing the envelope a little far, but $4 is about as high as you can get. But with that would have to come a conversation with every promoter as to where the facility fee is going, and making sure the users of the facility are aware of the mechanics and what is happening to the facility fee, because that will affect, the dollars coming out of the marketplace that also feed the events.
And then part B, Mayor.
Yes, and then following Councilman Griffin, Councilman Rodriguez has a question. Go ahead with your
Thank you.
follow-up. Mhm.
And just to fully understand the latter portion of your response on question 2 that Mayor had read off, it goes into the operating budget. Does council not have access to be able to apportion the operating dollars to potential maintenance or capital projects?
Under our current agreement, you guys set the bottom line budget for the year, and then it's in the OVG purview to do with it what we have to do to try to hit that budgetary number. Now, it's my opinion, could be wrong, so someone correct me, but whatever council wants to do with the fund balance is council's choice.
I'm thinking that we could, if we wanted to, we could dedicate, if we added another $2 on, say that $2 absolutely goes to deferred maintenance. I mean, you could do that. But with the fact that there's already $2 on there, I'm just thinking that I believe, Andrew, you said you have about 350,000 tickets a year. However, not all of those could absorb that $2 fee, because if it's a $10 ticket, adding an extra $2 makes it a $12 ticket. So there would have to be some discussion, because maybe on some of those ticket prices, it wouldn't be. And then Andrew, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the day and age of the deals with the promoters is very different. And Andrew reminded me that the facility fee concept, because I've mentioned it, is kind of old school. So that's like probably back from my day when I did this. The deals that are struck when these events come in are very complex deals. They're not as straightforward as we're just going to take $2 a ticket. We may be able to go there. And Andrew, could you speak to that and the ability to go there because of the way the deals are captured? And then after that, I'll defer to Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, it's quite complex, as you say, Mayor. You know, a lot of these concerts that we're working with, you know, the groups want to come in and they want to look at all the revenue streams that are there from all the different angles, because they have all sorts of different agendas. You know, they might review us from a sustainability lens, or our ability to work with nonprofits, or what we're charging the consumer. There's a lot of sensitivity to how we run our business, even from a venue level, because these groups have options as to where they want to go, and being very deliberate with how we set prices, set fees, how the promoters set the ticket pricing. It's a puzzle of how this all happens. It's very complex.
I would say it's something that we cannot be the sideline quarterback on, because none of us understand this business like they do. They are the experts. That's why they do what they do. It is complex. It is not easy. And I respect the work that gets done. But Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Andrew, one of the things that we have to take care of is the investment of the Fort Idaho Center and its projects. And we've been funding those projects. And I thought for a while there that Opie Group was going to help in directing that investment. For example, the amphitheater, the horse park. So now I'm going to ask you this, are you aware of any investment proposals by Oakview Group Corporation with CWI, and how that was how their ideas or direction would be funded?
Well, we're also discussing the amphitheater project with them, but that's the only other discussion.
Is that the only thing?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. What is the numbers that they are proposing so far?
Carbon copy of the numbers and information you guys have in front of you today.
You're talking about 10 million?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions along this path with Andrew that anyone has? Okay. So the other things, I know there's some other things. I had just written down that, and Andrew, we won't make you stay on, but I'll call you if we need you.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for your flexibility today.
Thank you. So a couple of things that we have heard, and really tonight, the thought was we've had a lot of questions from citizens, and so I wanted to address the Fort Idaho Center specific ones. We had the question about the deals, so we wanted to give the financial model to the council. Then we've been asked questions like, why don't you consider leasing it? Why don't you consider selling it? Why haven't you done a market assessment on it? And then we've discussed a potential conveyance and terms, and then another discussion that we'll have is underutilization. I would like to ask council, there may be some things that you wanted to achieve tonight. So would you like us to go down those, or how would you, do you have ideas about how you would like to proceed? Okay, Mike, thank you.
Question for Preston. There have been several allegations made against the mayor and city council alleging an abuse of authority. It's just been out there, transparency, that type of stuff, or an abuse of discretion. Can you define for us what abuse of discretion means and how it might be legally construed in the potential conveyance of the Idaho Center?
Appreciate the question. I'll try to address it in general terms. It's a fine line addressing this, of giving an overview versus specific legal advice. We'd want to do that in an executive session, but I'll try to address it from a general overview.
I didn't know if that was something you could discuss for us since it's a risk
Yeah.
assessment.
I think generally I can talk in those terms. You might recall from 2 weeks ago, on August 11th, I gave a presentation, just an overview about what the courts have said about this. And the courts have made it clear in the Supreme Court decisions addressing this law about a city's authority. They use terms vast discretion, broad authority, sweeping authority. And so what that means is the court is saying when it comes to matters of this nature, it is letting you make a discretionary choice. It's not a balls or strikes. It's more of a vote of what direction, what vision you'd like the city to go in.
Okay.
Councilman Haverfield, could you remind me, you said abuse of authority or?
Abuse of discretion is more the legal term that I've heard. And again, I mean, it's probably something we should go over in executive session since there are issues that are related to that. General question that I've heard too, with the likelihood of a lawsuit challenging the legality of the conveyance if it moves forward, would such a lawsuit delay or put off any final judgment until well into next year? There was a stay or whatever.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, that's a tough one to answer. Every litigation has its own shape and form. You don't know what claims have been filed yet, so it's really hard to categorize or pin down what that might look like. You'd have to see what it is to kind of give you an estimate on that. I know it's not a specific answer, but.
It just kind of goes towards the timing of making a decision of this nature. If we know that it's going to possibly be delayed.
It's always a risk, right? You can never control the actions of others, but we can act within the sideboards of what Idaho law and the courts have interpreted that law to be. And that's where we're steering you, wherever you want to go with your vast discretion, how you want to exercise that.
Can I ask a quick question? Go back to the first one, the abuse of authority or discretion. And I'm just trying to understand that. Where has there been abuse of authority?
It's an allegation.
I know it's an allegation, but I mean, anybody can pull some stupid allegation out, and that's what I feel like it is. Transparency, it totally is puzzling to me because that's why we're having this meeting here. That's why everything is out on our website, which typically you would never put contracts out on a website. You don't usually negotiate by committee. So it's totally baffling to me why someone would accuse abuse of authority or discretion. I understand that some people are, but it's very political, but whatever.
Well, and I can state, since, again, this just came up when I was looking into it, abuse of discretion is probably more legal in nature, but it's an impact more on fairness, perception of fairness, something that's giving one entity favor over another, bias or showing favoritism, making statements that might sway. There are things that can be construed as an abuse of discretion. That's why I wanted to bring it forward so that Preston could address it for us, because there is a potential for a lawsuit that would happen. And again, the citizens need to know the risk that we're taking so that as we move forward, they're aware of it. So I had another question for you, Preston, then. What would be the potential legal cost to defend the conveyance decision by the city? Would ICRIMP be covering this, or would it be the taxpayers that would be covering the cost of a defense?
Mayor and council, again, another challenging question to answer. That determination is made by ICRIMP, usually on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, when it comes to discretion decisions such as land use, ICRIMP has historically not covered those. But again, it's the nature of the lawsuit that drives their coverage, and we just don't know what lawsuit or challenge could be out there, if any. But that'd be a case-by-case determination.
Okay. Final question then, and Mayor, back to your question about an abuse of authority. Again, it's just all perception, the court of public opinion versus the court of law type of thing. So all I'm trying to do is vet out the risk that we're taking on as a council in this decision. So my final question, then, with the likelihood of a lawsuit, would the individual council members and mayor be subject to legal action citing abuse of authority, such as the granting of favor to CWI over other worthy institutions who would pay the legal costs associated with that lawsuit? Would we individually, or would there be insurance coverage, or would this citizens of Nampa?
And again, Mayor, Council, it's a tough, challenging one to answer. Maybe one better suited for executive session, but generally speaking, it's a case-by-case basis. Yep, have to give that answer.
I just had to get
To attorney,
Typical one is maybe, right? Or depends, that's it, it depends. It depends, that's it, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So the next section then maybe is just talking about lease option. And I can't really speak to this one, but it's been asked, and I don't know who would like to answer this question. Why are we not willing to lease it? Why is that not an option? And then discussing the option to sell it. I would say if we sold it and put it up for sale, I'm kind of skipping one, but that would probably get rid of any abusive discretionary thing that we've done wrong. Actually, we could just sell it and be done. And that would be really, but that would be so sad. But I think for some of our citizens, this is not about the Fort Idaho Center and the precious asset we have here. It's about a principle. And so for those citizens that we talk to that really like the idea of conveying it because they want to hang on to the asset, it is precious to them because they've been here and they think it's very, very important. But not everybody feels that way. So I think I'd like to take a minute and talk about a lease option or selling.
Mayor, I have a question for you then. Well, more toward Preston, actually. We've been hearing all along because we can't sell it because of the deed restrictions. And, well, okay, hold on.
We can sell it.
Okay.
And we can
Well,
put
that's
deed
what we've been-
restrictions on it. Yes.
Okay,
we
thank
can.
you. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yes.
But it has been stated that we can't because of deed restrictions. And I always thought, no, that's not even coming into play here. So that, number one, is out. Is out. We probably shouldn't be repeating that to the community any longer because
What's
we
that?
can't sell because of the deed restrictions.
No, we can sell it.
I know.
With deed restrictions.
Okay,
And so if
yes.
someone's misunderstanding it, then it's a misunderstanding.
Well, that's-
Because, is that correct? We can sell it.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful for teeing up this discussion, kind of
Okay.
laying the framework about what it is you can do for a sale versus a lease, vice versa. That way you kind of know, okay, what are your sideboards in each option, and then you evaluate it, if that works for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a little different standard. Overarching all of this, again, is that the court's rulings, that it's your discretion. You get to determine in your best judgment in the best interest of the city. It's a little different if you sell versus if you lease versus if you convey. What's been discussed predominantly is a conveyance, right? It's a legal term for, transferring property, and we would do it to another governmental entity. CWI is one of those that would qualify. And for each one of those lanes, there's a slightly different standard for each of them. So for a sale, Idaho law is clear on this, that it goes to the highest bidder. And so where deed restrictions sometimes come into the conversation is, hey, you know, we could put it out there for an X number of dollars, but that means anybody in the world that can come with a cash offer or a contract by sale could come make an offer. And the clause says shall convey. And that's where deed restrictions come in and say, well, we would like to tailor it in such a way where we narrow the field of people who may be interested. Every time you put a deed restriction, and generally speaking, it will decrease the value of that property for many people. Saying, well, if I can't do this on it, maybe it's not worth it to me. And the pool shrinks the more you put in there. Again, it is to the highest bidder. Case law, interpreting cases where somebody doesn't come in with a high bid, you would set that number, whatever that number is. I'll just throw it out. Well, that's just whatever's in your head, whatever that number is. If nobody reaches that number, then the playbook opens up for the city. And then the language says that if no bids are received, the city council shall have the authority to sell such property as it deems in the best interest of the city. Again, the statute is pretty riffed with a lot of references. Best interest of the city, you get to decide that. So selling has its own set of rules. Leasing has a slightly different standard. You'll recall that for selling and conveyance, there's an underutilization piece or not used for public purposes. For a lease, the standard is slightly different. It's for the council to determine, hey, this property is not needed for city purposes, and that you can reach terms that are, quote, may be just and equitable. That is pretty broad, because you get to determine what's just and equitable, and you get to determine if it's for city purposes or not. And
Is that state statute?
yeah, but this is Title 50, Chapter 14. That governs how any city conveys property in the state, or sells it or leases it. Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification, because we've been hearing we can't because of the deed restrictions, and I know that we could. So the lease agreement gives us pretty much good leeway.
All the options give you that leeway, vast discretion, yeah.
Right, okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
So for benefit of past experience in the commercial real estate side, industrial side.
Can't hear you.
So the typical transaction that has restrictions restricting the lessee or the buyer devalues what the purchase price or sales price will be. I think Preston alluded to that. The typical commercial lease has responsibilities of landlord. There's some triple net leases that take place in the commercial and industrial area, but there's still, even in a triple net lease, and triple net means that the tenant is picking up basically all the expenses for the operation of the property, but they still have a payment to the landlord. But there's still responsibilities on the landlord to maintain the facility. Or if the tenant is actually picking that up, that puts the landlord at risk. In other words, the tenant doesn't fix the roof leaks. They don't care about roof leaks because they're not storing product that doesn't matter if it gets wet. So they violate the lease. There's all those different issues that go into the issue on these other types of conveyances, from my perspective, the experience side. You can have a lease where the tenant is responsible for the improvements of the facility, but if they don't make the facility, then as a landlord, you've got to enforce the terms of the lease. And if they're not financially capable of doing what is needed under the lease, it falls back to the landlord. So leasing, yes, it's an option, but I don't think it's the viable option. I think it's a false sense of getting something done that is really at risk with whoever's going to lease it. Selling with constraints, a little story that was shared within my early days of education in the real estate side of life and business side was you sell the property, but the seller retains the right to put a peg above the front door. And so the conveyance takes place, but the seller owns the peg and the right to use the peg above the front door. And so after the sale, the owner puts up a dead chicken on the peg and hangs it in front of the front door. And when the chicken has rotted enough, he hangs another chicken. Eventually, the buyer leaves because they can't stand going in and out of the house with the dead chicken above the front door. What's the point of the story? When you give up issues or depend upon, so you retain something or you allow somebody else to, it impacts your operation. And you can enter into an agreement thinking this is a good method of disposal of the property, but the reality is the city ends up still being on the hook for something. And so I just, you know, I've looked at those options. I'm very familiar with them, but I question whether that's a viable option for the city. Is a lease agreement or trying to convey but yet retain certain things. So I just bringing those up, you know, so those have been mentioned. I'm just raising, I've seen and experienced things when you have those restrictions. You think they're protecting yourself, it still requires performance on that other party's side. So a full conveyance, then you're releasing it, and then, but the other part is no different than hoping the other operators are going to perform as well as you desire. Mayor?
I just wanted to comment, and I was looking at a text because Amy texted me that, and Char did too, that Sebastian had to step off, and he left some parting comments. So I wanted to just share those parting comments so that everybody could see them. It was one, if we can develop our own enterprise zone, I'd be interested in that discussion. 2, Sebastian said, I'm not interested in selling it. And 3, I might be leaning that we pause the discussion of conveying. Let's move forward in discussion with OVG in regard to our amphitheater investment contract. Let's really look at reframing our facility fee structure. So those were the comments that he left as he had to step out.
Mayor,
Yes.
some questions for Preston. Preston, if we were to sell, do we set a sell price or do we just put it out there and it just goes to highest bidder?
That's a good question. Typically, you're going to set the price. Code does allow you to not put a price, and you just say, if you got $1, come forward, and then up the bidding goes. Or you put out, typically, you're going to put a high, a minimum price threshold, and that will be an important number because if nobody comes in above it, right, nobody can meet it, then it opens the playbook for the next step on how the city would convey the property.
So how would we choose to set that price then if we were to go that route?
Yeah, good question. So you'll do it at a public hearing, be duly noticed. I think the best way to do it would probably be at the one, if it went forward that way, where we declare our intent to proceed with the sale formally on the record. I know there's been tons of discussion about it, but we haven't quite pulled the trigger on like a formal, we're taking the step forward. That would be the time you would set it on the record, and there'd be a vote on that value, and that would be the number that any bidder would go up against.
So how do we as council decide what that number would be? What are we looking at as far as?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions. You have your CFO here, you're asking about different property valuations. Statute allows, does not require, but allows to obtain an appraisal.
So would it be better for us to put it up for sale, not put $1 on it, and let the bidder do an appraisal rather than the city do an appraisal? Because that would cost us money, I would assume, to do one, and I don't know what the cost would be, but is that something we can put on them?
It's a good question, and I'm the attorney, so I'm not going to wade into a policy decision if it's better or not, because it really is. It goes back to, is that what you think would be best, in the best interest of the city? Do you think it's wise to bring on, get your own appraisal, know what that number is, or put it up to others? You can dictate how that can be, yeah,
It would be an option then. We could say, we're not putting a price on it.
yeah.
If somebody wants to buy it, they can get an appraisal on it and shoot us a number and we'll go from there.
Yeah, if they want to, for their own purposes, there's
If
other
we-
options. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're okay. If we were to do that route, then we could, in the cell, we could put all the deed restrictions and we could do, I mean, what we've heard from the public is, we value this in our community, we love all of the events and everything. So, I mean, we could go through it with Andrew and say what kinds of things are being booked here, and we could put deed restrictions on graduations and the gun shows and the craft shows, all the things that happen there. We can make sure we keep all of that. That would all be restricted. Of course, it would lower the value, but it would keep what it is in the community that people are saying that they want to keep. We could do that.
Could, yes, it would be subject to a majority vote. What would be in those deed restrictions? So that would be a conversation for the whole council, yeah.
Thanks, President.
So legal, yes. Operating wise, whether financially wise is the conflict of discussion there.
Mayor Kling, you know, and something's been in my crop for a long time, so I'm just going to say, I know we've been talking about the funds that we need to fix the Fort Idaho Center. Is there any kind of grants or monies available through the state that we could use to help? I don't know what is out there, but I don't know. What do you think?
There's nothing that I'm aware of. And I say that because even if CWI had it and the state was asked to contribute, as they do to every other property that they do, that the state owns, right? That became very controversial.
Oh.
Even asking that the state cover anything. To my knowledge, there are not grants out there from the state, and with the 3% holdbacks on education,
Yeah.
I don't see there being anything that way that there is for something like this.
Well, and I see that that CWI gets funded through several different agencies, so I wonder if we could tap into that, or if we have the ability to get funds that way. I'm just concerned that maybe we're not searching everything, or we're not able to.
I'm not aware of any other agencies that we could tap into for this facility.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, thank you.
So comment, it would seem the legislature spoke pretty loud 4 years ago as to their desire to continue to see cities have 100% funding. And that's part of the challenge that Nampa has faced over the last 3 years in budgeting. Becoming very clear what that really means this current time and facing 2026. So I don't think the state is going to be in the business of helping fund us, considering the legislation that's been passed 3 years ago. So just FYI, I don't think that's viable in that direction. It's really, is there other public funding of some sort that out there? And that seems to be in question, whether, and the likelihood so far hasn't seemed like that's been given to us.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So I've heard values from 110 million to 100, all the way to 300 million. So if we want to put a bunch of deed restrictions on it and list it for 150 million, I would vote for that. I don't think we're going to get 150 million, but I would vote for that. And we would lose our soccer fields that we would have access to. We would lose any other control over that property that we could put in a conveyance agreement. We would lose potential, our law enforcement facility there, and the other things that have been listed out. We would lose potential of but that's just the price you pay if you want to get rid of it. And, but I wouldn't be in favor of listing it for a no, just to go to the highest bidder. I mean, we could have an unknown group come in here from East Coast and buy that thing. It would be no skin off their nose to spend 10, 20, $30 million and let it sit there and do nothing and just maintain the rodeo, not maintain the facility. It'd just be a rotting hole, and they could do it just to spite us because of the community that we are. There are groups out there like that, and that makes me very nervous. So I don't think that's what we need for our community.
Mayor, can I ask you, you have experience at Quest Arena? So that's a privately owned arena tied to the hotel. How does that work as far as from a standpoint of, I guess they own it, they get the ticket revenue, so they pay all expenses. So how has that worked out over the years? Was that built with CCDC money or not?
No, it was a private investment.
Okay.
I don't know if they had any incentives that came through. It was privately owned, is privately owned, and we lost money on the arena side. Every year we lost money. The money maker was the hotel and then the steelheads. So the arena itself, it was very challenging managing an asset that did not self-fund. It just didn't. And so it's a reality. That came online at the same time as the Ford Idaho Center, the Idaho Center did, very similar timeframes. Both of them were very challenged financially because at the time, which was almost 30 years ago, we overbuilt the market. Now today, the market can sustain a lot because we're a much larger market today. But if you add the amphitheater out in Caldwell and you add Boise State doing concerts on their field that would compete against us right now, which neither of those are in play today, but it's very likely they're going to be in play, it's going to take our profitability down and our likelihood of profitability down. And I think that that's something, because just knowing what the market does and how it works, it's very challenging. That's the concerns that I have, is that when we add, which it's going to happen in our market, that there's competition in the market, trying to meet that bottom line is going to be very difficult. And so if we don't have the money as a city to do so, then that's concerning. The other thing is the utilization can be a much greater utilization if it's owned by a college and the incorporation of what they can do is far beyond what we can do with it. So,
Mayor Preston, if we were to put this up for sale, what does the time frame look like? How long would we know, or how long does it need to be on the market?
Statute doesn't specify how long. All it says is that it needs to be held at a public auction. And keep in mind, we'd have to go through those kind of two-step dance, right? Statute says, one, you need to declare your intent, notice a public hearing, wait at least 14 days, have the public hearing, and then a formal vote to proceed to convey, sell it however you want. And then from there, you would go hold a public auction, see if a bid comes in. And the bid, by statute, has to be cash, or it can be a contract for purchase, but it can't exceed 10 years. So you'd put in there, this is a cash-only bid, and they got to come pony up at the table. And if nobody does, opens the playbook, and then you can convey it, sell it, how pretty much the court says how you wish. Hopefully that gives you some direction there, but there's no real time frame.
Okay. So we could know, after it's noticed and then we do the public hearing on it, we put it up for market, we could have it on the market for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what would be?
Yeah, there's no limitation, just kind of go in standard industry practice, a few weeks and kind of see the interest there. And there's other options too. I know that some discussions have been had. Maybe you want to see who's out there and would be interested in advance. You could put it up for a request for information or request for proposal, kind of get a flavor of what people could bring to the table. And based off that, then maybe make it an informed decision. There's a bunch of options here, though. Yeah.
There would be just a comment there, a great deal of effort needing to be put in the marketing side of putting that proposal on marketplace. And it's not a listing that would be, or offer for sale. So you want to be out in the publications around the country and possibly the world, because the size of the facility, what it's about, the appeal of purchase isn't here locally. The appeal of purchase is a larger firm, corporation, group, however it's done. And so you're trying to get publication out into the major cities to let that word be out there. Because of the, unless you're selling it for $1. But even $1 means whoever's buying it's got to have the wherewithal to take on the liabilities and the operation. Keep in mind that, again, when you got deed restrictions or user restrictions, when you have that on there, it devalues the property. So it's just for information from the real estate side.
Well, and I guess my thoughts behind it are, we keep hearing from the public, this is my asset, don't give it away, that we could sell it. So maybe we try and just put it out there and see what happens, because that's what the public keeps telling us that they want. So we give it a try, put it out there for 2 weeks and see if somebody buys it. With all the deed restrictions, again, we want to keep it community-centric to what it is that the public is saying that they want to keep, but we throw it out and see if somebody buys.
So
I
Mike,
will
I'm sorry.
Just real quick, I will say not all the public is saying that. And that's what's so important to hear. We have a group of people that are saying that. We also have a group of people that are saying, convey it, don't sell it, because they don't. So we need to not lose sight of that, because we can say we're going to shift over here, and you're going to have one group of people applauding us, and the other group of people are going to be so angry that we would actually consider selling this asset and losing what we've got,
That's fair.
rather than protecting it through the conveyance. So either way, it
Yeah.
is what it is. Go
Thanks for
ahead.
the correction.
So Mayor, I was just going to say we really haven't talked about public-private partnerships, the potential for looking at the wisest and best use of 100 acres of property. Obviously, it's all consolidated on one parcel at this point, but if we were to look at 100 acres from a business standpoint, if you had 100 acres to work with across the city, say, and it was in separate parcels, if you were to look at it, how much could be used for one thing versus another thing? We know that the amphitheater has tremendous interest in it because it's already there. It has an indoor arena next to it, so it has a value in itself that's inherent as far as from a leasable standpoint, whether it's OVG or someone else. We know that OVG is one of the best to be able to work with because they're tied to Live Nation. Live Nation is one of two, I think, is what I've heard nationally, that are the ones that are bringing in the most popular acts. So having that tie, having them tied to our amphitheater as far as with the expansions makes a lot of sense. So if we were to look at other ways or avenues to utilize the facility with more of a profit approach to it, to David's point, is that something that we could consider to do by not conveying the property and looking at retaining ownership and moving down a path of maybe multiple approaches to it? That's kind of the, my thought has been from the beginning is there a way that we can approach this without having to give up the ground, lease the property, lease portions of the property, sell, or if we have to sell, but I don't think we have to, we could create land leases we've talked about as far as along the frontage. It looks like CWI is looking at the same approach in their agreements. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, other comments? Thoughts?
Nobody liked that thought, huh?
Madam Mayor, I'll
Heard it.
address that, Councilman Haverfield. You know, if I could see some numbers that worked, that made sense, I'm not really thinking the city should be in the real estate development business. But if I could see some numbers that worked and it made sense, then, you know, I would be happy to look at that. But so far, I haven't seen any numbers that make sense that gets us in the black consistently.
Councilman Jones?
I think,
So if that's the approach, then that's the approach I can take.
Well, I wasn't trying to phrase anything in that light. Okay. So what I was trying to follow up on is that I'm trying to emphasize that I believe if the city's going to try to develop the property further or part and parcel it, that it's only going to become more convoluted as to what we do and how we're going to fund those changes. So if we can't fund the operation, or we're funding a deficit of the operation at the current time, we're not really putting hardly any money into the capital improvements that are needed right now. And so where does the money come from to physically further develop the property? Where's the capital come that we would put more investment into the property with the expectation of a return? We're now moving into what the private sector does, and the private sector may come forward with some ideas and options, but is it realistic that unless it's a controlled environment in terms of an enterprise zone or a ability for people to purchase or lease the land, et cetera, is the marketplace going to respond? It's probably at least a 3-year event of whatever we put together to try to then know in 3 years, 5 years, is this approach even viable? And any agreement that we enter into would have to have consideration of us being able to cancel those agreements if it determines viability. Doesn't work. In other words, somebody could say, if it doesn't work, depart and parcel. Because you could go through the platting process, you could go through enterprise zone, legalese, do all those things, and possibly only have one person step forward and say, yeah, I want parcel A. And the city has to invest infrastructure to do something. And the city now has taken further capital improvement monies and got into the development business. So not only are we in the horse park and the arena business, but now we're in the development business. And so, and we won't know till what the marketplace says.
Okay, so let me maybe add another layer to this.
Okay.
And maybe Preston, you can help with it. We've been able to, in the past, through the urban renewal effort, to create the Idaho Center, then to create a new law enforcement and library and infrastructure that's going in place or has been put in place. Could we look at this with a different lens and look at it from a standpoint? I know that we can't transfer ownership or ability to control the Idaho Center to the Napa Development Corporation, but could there be another spot, urban renewal area created in that location to allow us then to divert dollars that might be available in that effort? Then we could work, we would be able to work with restrictions on development where currently we can't as a city. The city has to basically sell it or create a lease arrangement. The Napa Development Corporation could say, okay, we'll sell it or we'll lease it, but this is what we want to have placed on that property.
Yeah, it's a good question. Some points have been brought up about enterprise zones, other districts. I guess a few things to clarify. In Idaho, enterprise zones are not actually a thing, officially in statute. It's a concept. Some states have it, Washington, Arizona, but we don't have it. So for those listening, it's not a special district you create, it's more of a concept. And we've had some discussions, right? The auditorium district has come up. There's a lot of legal entanglement in how those can and cannot operate. Some problematic Supreme Court decisions. For urban renewal agencies, these are options that are on the table. There's not just one way to do this.
Right.
And it would take a little more deep dive on the analysis there.
If I could comment, though, we have been trying for over 8 years to 10 years to sell the lots along Idaho Center Boulevard. That has been attempted. It's been discussed. Robin Sellers just recently, before the downturn, about the same time that the interest rates went up and we lost the urban renewal deal at the corner of 3rd and 12th that fell apart, that high-rise that was there was the same time that the entity that was interested in either purchasing or leasing property along Idaho Center Boulevard also backed out because of the market. We can have the concept, but you have to have a willing buyer. And so far, we haven't had a willing buyer. Now, across the street, a number of restaurants have built out. The other thing is, there's only so much ground that we can develop there on the parking side. And I know that there's been a discussion about going to compact parking, and everything I've heard is like, no way, because half the people here drive trucks. We drive SUVs and trucks. So, and those are already small parking spots, I find anyway. If it were Costco, it'd be different, but those are not big parking spots. And so you have to figure out where people are going to park, right, if you're going to do that. We have certain parking requirements, and it's the same is true of, we could put other stuff on that property, but then how do you accommodate a concert that's a sellout? I think it was last night or the night before, it was 10,005. When you have that many people coming in, if they don't have a place to park, you are not going to be a viable venue. Because we're talking about all these different things we could do, but you may not be viable as a venue. And so I think we're wanting to do a little bit of everything that we could be and do, but is it viable? Really, is it a better utilization? Does it take us down the road? We could get, I know we kind of put Mike Penny on the spot, but maybe $200,000 on a lease. Or you could sell it. We had a price on that same property for about $1.5 million, which would be a better deal. But that $1.5 million still doesn't go a long ways to meeting that bottom line. I think we've got to be prepared in two things. There's 3 issues at hand. The bottom line of a financial deficit at the end of the day when the competition comes in the market. Then you've got deferred maintenance, and then a higher utilization opportunity, which CWI would definitely have a higher utilization of that property than we would. And then the 4th thing that I add is our kids and the next generation. Some people don't care about that. I do. I think it's important to think about the go-on rate and what we can have here in the community of Nampa. All that said, I don't know that I have yet to hear a solution that addresses all that's realistic. Now, if we sold it and we did a deed restriction, you could do a deed restriction, put it up for sale, and do a deed restriction that whoever buys it has to maintain the Snake River Stampede Rodeo. They have to maintain the horse park because of the economic impact. And you could add additional deed restrictions to it. We would miss out on some things, as Councilman Reynolds said, that currently what's available in the conveyance, but it isn't guaranteed, and that is the rec center property. The value of that rec center is between $20 and $30 million, in addition to the deferred maintenance. That's a pretty big deal. But CWI cannot. The rec center.
It's not in their agreement that they're going to provide that. If they
It's
provide it.
correct. Their intent is to, but, and
There's nothing holding them to having to do anything.
that is absolutely correct. You're right. And there have been discussions, and Preston has worked with their legal counsel on that. And could you speak to the reason why they don't feel comfortable putting that in there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Like any transaction, you got to have 2 willing parties to the table, and each are assessing their own risks. No different here. CWI and city, mainly me, have been interfacing for terms and the feasibility, and there's some question about the legality of requiring a entity to commit, a public entity to commit to agree to build a rec center or whatever the building may be. We've tried to address that. As recent as Friday, I've sent over some new proposed terms that give a little more detail as to the efforts, CBI could make towards obtaining funding for such a commitment. But even then, they were hesitant about that commitment, the ability to do so, and even some of the legality. Idaho's constitution has a rule that cities and political subdivisions are not allowed to incur indebtedness beyond that current fiscal year. So if something is bound to be built in a few years, that could be viewed as a liability, and that's their concern. And we've tried to go about it, and we may just have reasonable, different opinion of how to interpret that law. And that's up to them in their province, how they want to interpret the law and assess their risk. But we've done a good faith effort to try to get more definiteness and, concrete commitments. But this is a complex transaction, to say the least.
Well, and again, I mean, like you say, they're covering themselves as far as from the standpoint of not overcommitting and under-delivering, I guess, is what we're talking
Maybe.
about here. I was going to get into the weeds a little bit. As far as on the Phase 1 environmental audit that's stated in here, do you believe that the Jacobs report satisfies the conditions of that environmental audit?
That's probably a better question for Daniel Badger, our city engineer. I've consulted with him on that term.
Okay.
And that is, it is a draft. And given the last month or two's activity with this transaction, some of this has been put on pause to see what direction to go in before really fine-tuning it.
I think that was back to Councilwoman Jangula's question at one point as far as the assessment, because it does state that a second Phase 2 could be requested, which would be at the city's full expense, where they're supposed to be providing their own. But I don't believe that they've met the criteria for the American or ASTM standard that's listed there. So that's why I was asking the question, if that's your interpretation in your conversations with them.
Yeah, on that one, I would defer to our city engineer.
I think it was a good
Sorry, I
point.
didn't mean to get in the
Yeah.
weeds there.
Those are things that we would have to look at if we're going to continue to move forward. But I think, as Preston said, I think we've somewhat paused because there's no need, especially for CWI, to be paying legal fees, to be working on something that is sitting here pretty up in the air at this point.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Okay, so I have concern that says, why not lease the Fort Idaho Center to CWI instead of transferring the property? The main direction that I see from here is leasing is not a viable option for CWI. It makes significant investments needed to develop and improve the property. CWI must have ownership. Well, I really don't agree with that. And I'd like to know, I wish CWI was here, because we're trying to make some investments for the city in soccer and rec center and police headquarters, or whatever you call it, which I wonder about that. Why can't they invest with us? I've asked that several times. I haven't got a good answer. So it'd be a joint effort. So I don't know. So Preston, is there anything legally that prohibits us to do that? I don't know of anything.
Mayor, Councilman, this is a good question. In the community college chapter and titles in Idaho Code, it has sections about the ability of community colleges to work with other governmental entities to pursue certain ventures. That's actually cited in the term sheet. And so legally, yeah, there's a vehicle there. Again, is it economically sustainable and politically acceptable, for both parties? And that's what we're trying to hash out right now.
Okay, let me clarify this. I'm trying to understand you. You said there isn't anything prohibiting that, right?
It would depend on what type of project or venture, right?
Right.
Both parties are going.
It's an investment on both parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking, yeah, there is the ability for community colleges to work with other governments like cities.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I can just speak to that really quick. I did talk to President Gordon Jones about that, and his answer to me was if we were to be in a partnership with them, it would hinder their ability to get funds from their donors, because then their donors are saying, well, kind of what's in it for me, what's the investment? And so if they're kind of if they're half in, half out, then their donors can't really fund it entirely. So that was just kind of the answer that I got from Gordon.
Well, we've been getting that kind of answer all along, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
what was the value of the soccer field agreement? Did Nick give us a paper on that at our last council meeting?
Of value?
Yeah, he had put a value to that. I don't have that paper with me, I don't think, but
Oh,
the soccer field agreement for the 10 years that it gives our
I
citizens
think he
access to those.
mentioned, was it 3.5 million to maintain it over 10 years?
Something
I
like that.
think in that, if,
I think I have that document.
I think, in reality, it'll probably be, 3 million. And I don't remember what he put in for the value to purchase acreage. And then I think it was 3.5 million, if I remember correctly, was what he had in as the potential maintenance on it. The value of that for 10 years of just maintaining the property. For us to have the opportunity to use the property for 10 years and not to have to maintain it is huge for us as a city, because while we may need to purchase property, while there's property to be purchased for 10 years down the road, we don't have to develop that property. And just the cost to develop the fields is costly. And so for someone else to allow us the use of the fields, it gives us time. It doesn't take away the need to purchase the fields, because we're going to have to purchase soccer fields and own them down the road. But just the maintenance, especially right now where it's hard to even find parks workers to maintain. So there is a cost for that. Yes.
Just following up, I mean, we've had discussions about trying to acquire. We've been unsuccessful in acquiring additional ground. And then not only, I mean, the one deal that we were even trying on, that's my recollection, that that was going to take all the impact fee money that we'd collected, but it gave no ability to then improve it and the cost to put in the improvements. And so from the standpoint of being able to lock in 10 years of usage of existing fields is a pretty significant issue for the city. Doesn't mean it's a cure-all for everything, but it's certainly a good benefit.
Well, David, I was looking about that the other day, and I was thinking, we're going to get some soccer fields where we're giving up the Fort Idaho Center. And I'm thinking, wow, that's not good for me. That doesn't look good for me. It's just me, that's just my attitude. And I love soccer.
Well, I don't think we're trading Fort Idaho Center for some soccer fields. I think the soccer fields is just one paragraph in the agreement. I think if we're looking at a conveyance and we're wanting to, what we're trying to release ourselves from is millions of dollars of operating costs and capital costs. And that's really the issue. And so I'm going to segue and say, from my side, something that we've had discussion from the bench. If we choose to keep the facility and continue to operate it, execute a revised agreement with OVG, and move further forward, then there's been a real reluctance by council or certain members of council at different segments to go for foregone monies. We all know the repercussions, and we're seeing the real repercussions of the legislature's move 3-4 years ago. And so we've had a resistance to hold back, personnel, hiring, or other operation. So the real bottom line comes down to, how are we going to maintain the facility? And at what point do we enter into a lawsuit because somebody gets injured or damaged or et cetera because of our facility delay of keeping it functional and going? And at what point are we going to be held liable? And I think that's a viable question that we're yet to discuss in executive session. What's liability and our legal responsibility? So it's a concern for me, whether I'm on this council or whomever is on, if there's personal liability for not maintaining a facility that's open to the public. At what point does our insurance carrier say, we can no longer insure you? So there's some practical issues that come into play as well. So part of for me on this whole thing was looking at possibilities that could work for the community, for the entities, et cetera. And so it's just simply what's going to make sense for the city future forward.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I've asked myself this question many times. I'm like, what are we getting out of the Fort Idaho Center? And I love it, having it there for a community asset for the rodeo and for the horse park and the economic drivers. And it's fun to say we have this Fort Idaho Center in Nampa. But what are we so scared of losing? Because with the conveyance that we've talked about at length, we're gaining, we're not losing, we're gaining increased opportunity for our youth and for our future. We're retaining everything that we currently have there, concerts, amphitheater, horse park, rodeo, and we're gaining all these other things, and we're helping our future and our city growth. So I don't understand what we're so scared of losing and why we keep saying that we're losing. Why are we choking the life out of this thing? It just doesn't make sense to me why we would not do that. And in the agreement, we've even said that we get this thing back. If they fail, we get it back. And I personally don't want it back. I want it to succeed and to grow and flourish and be something better than what we have, because it's not doing well the way it is. It's like a flower that you didn't water. And so I'm still struggling with what we're so afraid of losing here.
You know, an interesting question when you said that, and I looked down at these notes earlier: abuse of authority, abuse of discretion, unfairness, bias, the likelihood of a lawsuit, potential lawsuit, and the risks. And would we as individual council members be at risk? And that is the most amazing thing to think about that, because I'm thinking, why? Based on what you just shared. Why? And when we're motivated out of fear, I just don't know why people would even treat us like that, candidly. And that's what's so appalling to me, the comments that have been made, when we're truly trying to figure out, how do we maintain a great asset? How do we invest in the future generations of our students, the youth of our community? And actually, if CWI owned it, my guess is the average citizen in Nampa wouldn't even know it. They wouldn't see any change. They would see a greater utilization, but they wouldn't know, because everything would keep happening as it has been happening, but it would be utilized better, and there would be investment in there, and there would be new life breathed into it. So I am trying to understand, with all the tactics, the horrible accusations that have been made that just amaze me. It's extremely, to me, I cannot believe that people treat people like that. Anna treated me like that. It's amazing to me. When we're trying to do a good thing, we're not trying to do a bad thing, we're trying to do a good thing. But if, to appease everybody, we just say, you know what, throw up your arms and sell it, get rid of it, and we're done. We won't be sued, we won't be accused of an abuse of authority, we won't have a lawsuit. There you go. And the other thing is, nobody wants to pay for it. We could go back, because it's been loud and clear, do not increase my taxes, right? I don't want to increase anybody's taxes. But what do you do if because all I'm hearing is, don't increase my taxes, the only option that we've been given by those that are so loud is to sell it. That doesn't meet the needs of a lot of our citizens, the quiet ones, I will tell you. But is that how we should respond, is because of the threats and out of fear, make a decision that probably isn't even the best decision, but it'll appease the loud.
Mayor, I would just recommend a slight pause to make sure that we are assessing the risk. I mean, we've talked about potential risk of a lawsuit from someone falling into a hole that's 20 feet deep out there in the parking lot, or whatever it might be. There are inherent risks on both sides, and that's why I was just asking Preston, do we have E&O insurance as a council? I don't know that we do. I know individually I do, but that's based upon my practice. But, you know, errors and omissions is always about your judgment and whether you're exercising good judgment or not. And I think that's been the question some have posed. So we just want to make sure that we're properly vetting out what we're talking about here. That's all I'm asking for. And that's
I
what.
agree with that.
Yeah. And so, again, it's all about risk assessment as we move forward, what's in the best interest of the safety of the public. We talk about law enforcement, how important that is, and how the funding is very important. The funding of various aspects of things, obviously the level of service that we provide as the citizens by city employees, it's all important. So we're not taking any of this lightly. From my standpoint of living here 46 years, it's different than the person that's only been here 6 to 8. It's a different paradigm. So what we inherited, what we helped build now is, giving it away is the best thing or not. And sometimes it's hard as pills to swallow. That's all I'm trying to say as far as in that regard.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? If there aren't, I'm going to ask that we adjourn into executive session. And that is, I've got to find it, pursuant to Idaho Code 742061. Oh, which one is it? Preston, do you want to,
F,
do you
Mayor?
have it in front of me?
I think it's F.
F?
Oh, good, we're not doing all of them?
Yes. Thank you, F. Thank you.
Good.
We want to be here till midnight, yeah. So I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061F.
Second.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what was the motion.
I seconded it.
Dale and Victor.
Dale was motion.
He moved it, and Victor seconded it.
Thank you. Rodriguez. Oh, I'm sorry, not Rodriguez. Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Hammerfield. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor?